On a dusty back road in West Texas, Ethan Cole almost drove straight past a dying body on the roadside. One glance in the rearview mirror changed everything. Blood soaked into the dry dust, a phone vibrating weakly beneath the body of a nameless girl. Ethan didn't know that stopping would pull him, a poor single father with $47 in his wallet, into a world of power, deception, and forces willing to kill to hide the truth. He only knew one thing. If he left, she would die. The overhead fluorescent light in Cole's auto repair flickered like it had been doing for 3 months. Ethan Cole stood under it, hands black with grease, staring at the invoice he'd just written. $240 for a transmission flush and filter replacement on a 2004 Chevy Silverado. Fair price. Honest work. The truck's owner never showed up to collect it. That was the third no-show this month. Ethan crumpled the invoice and tossed it toward the trash can. It bounced off the rim. He didn't bother picking it up. The shop occupied a corrugated metal building on the eastern edge of Red Hollow. Texas population 1,847 if you counted the cemetery. The sign outside still read Cole and Sons, though there were no sons. Just Ethan, and before the accident that took his wife, Rachel, 4 years ago, there had been 4 of them. Now there were 2. His phone buzzed. Text from Mia's school. Lunch account balance, -$43.50. Please settle immediately. Ethan pulled out his wallet. 3 20s, 1 5, 2 1s, $47. Payday was Friday. Today was Tuesday. He typed back, "We'll bring cash tomorrow." Another lie to add to the collection. The bay door rattled as wind pushed against it. Outside, the Texas heat pressed down on everything like a hand on a stove. July in Red Hollow meant 3 things: 100-degree days, dried creek beds, and people driving their vehicles until something broke because they couldn't afford preventive maintenance. Ethan had been one of those people once. Now he fixed their cars and pretended he wasn't still one of them. His medical license had been revoked 6 years ago. Not for malpractice, the word they used was irregularities. He'd treated a woman in diabetic shock in a grocery store parking lot, used supplies from the ambulance he wasn't certified to access anymore. She lived. He lost everything. The nursing board called it practice without proper credentials. The newspapers called it vigilante medicine. His daughter, Mia, who was 3 at the time, called it the day Daddy stopped going to the hospital. Now he fixed engines instead of bodies. The pay was worse. The hours were longer. But nobody could take away a wrench. His phone rang. Unknown number. Texas area code, but not local. Cole's Auto. Yeah. Hi. My car broke down on County Road 14, near the old quarry. Can you come out? Male voice. Young. Nervous. What's wrong with it? I don't know, man. It just died. Won't start. Ethan glanced at the clock. 4:45. Mia's bus dropped her at 5:15. I can be there in 20 minutes. It's $60 for the call-out, plus labor and parts. That's fine. Just hurry, please. There's no signal out here. I'm lucky this call went through. The line went dead. Ethan grabbed his toolbox and keys. $60 would cover Mia's lunch account and leave $17 for groceries. Ramen and hot dogs until Friday. He locked the shop and climbed into his 1998 Ford F-150. The engine coughed twice before turning over. He made a mental note to check the fuel filter this weekend. County Road 14 stretched northeast out of Red Hollow into nothing. Scrub brush, mesquite, and the skeletal remains of the limestone quarry that gave the county its only industry until it closed in 1987. Ethan had only been out this way twice in 5 years. Nobody lived out here. Nobody worked out here. Nobody called for roadside assistance from here. The thought tickled the back of his mind as he drove, but he pushed it aside. $60 was $60. The road turned to caliche gravel after the 5-mile marker. Ethan's truck kicked up a plume of white dust that hung in the still air like smoke. The quarry sat another 3 miles ahead, a massive scar in the earth surrounded by chain-link fence and warning signs nobody read. His phone showed no signal. He drove slower, scanning both sides of the road for a disabled vehicle. Nothing. Just endless brown grass and heat shimmer. At the 7-mile marker, he stopped. No car. No person. No tire tracks except his own. Ethan got out and walked 100 feet in each direction. The silence was total, except for the tick of his cooling engine. He'd been set up. The realization settled over him like cold water. Someone had called him out here as a prank, or worse. He thought of the cash in his wallet, the empty road, the lack of witnesses. He turned back toward his truck. That's when he saw it. In his rearview mirror, just as he'd shifted into reverse a flash of color against the brown earth about 50 yards back. He'd driven right past it. Ethan killed the engine and got out. The body lay in the shallow ditch on the passenger side of the road, partially hidden by a clump of dried tumbleweed. Female. Young, maybe early 20s. Face down, dark hair matted with blood. He ran. Years of emergency training kicked in before his mind caught up. He dropped to his knees beside her, fingers going to her neck. Pulse present, thready, rapid. She was alive. Blood came from a wound near her right temple, already clotting but still seeping. Her breathing was shallow, irregular. Skin pale and cool despite the heat. Probable concussion. Possible internal injuries. No purse. No ID. No phone visible. Her clothes were expensive designer jeans, silk blouse now torn and stained. Her left wrist bore a watch that probably cost more than his truck. "Can you hear me?" Ethan said. "I'm going to help you." No response. He did a rapid assessment. No obvious spinal injury. No major bleeding from anywhere except the head wound. But she needed a hospital. Now, Ethan ran back to his truck and grabbed his toolbox. In the bottom, wrapped in oil-stained canvas, was his old trauma kit. He'd kept it after losing his license, unable to throw it away. Now it felt like providence. He returned to her and applied pressure to the head wound with sterile gauze. The bleeding slowed. Her eyes fluttered but didn't open. "Stay with me," he said. As he worked, his hands moved with the muscle memory of 1,000 emergency calls, but his mind raced. Who was she? How did she end up here? Where was her car? Then he saw it half buried under her shoulder. A phone. The screen was shattered, but it was vibrating. 17 missed calls. All from V. Sterling. Ethan pocketed it. He couldn't wait for an ambulance. Even if his phone had signal to call one, the nearest hospital was in Dripping Springs, 40 minutes away. She might not have 40 minutes. He lifted her as gently as he could and carried her to his truck. She was light, maybe 110 pounds. He placed her in the back seat, her head elevated on his rolled-up jacket. Then he drove faster than he'd ever driven in his life. Hillcrest Medical Clinic sat on the western edge of Dripping Springs, a low brick building that served the rural poor who couldn't afford the hospital in Austin. Ethan had brought Mia here twice for ear infections. They had a sliding scale payment system and didn't turn people away. He carried the girl through the automatic doors at 6:47. The receptionist, a woman named Janet who'd helped him with Mia's paperwork, stood up immediately. "Ethan?" "What happened?" "Found her on County Road 14. Head injury. Possible concussion. She needs a doctor now." Janet hit a button. Within 30 seconds, 2 nurses and a physician's assistant had the girl on a gurney and were wheeling her through double doors. "Is she family?" Janet asked. "No. I don't know who she is. We need information for intake." "I don't have any." Janet looked at him, then at the blood on his hands and shirt. "You brought her in. That makes you the responsible party until we can identify her or contact family." Ethan nodded. He understood what that meant. An hour passed. He sat in a plastic chair bolted to the waiting room floor, watching a muted television show he didn't recognize. His phone showed 8 missed calls from Mia. He texted her, "Working late. Mrs. Chen will pick you up. Love you." Mrs. Chen was their neighbor, a widow who watched Mia sometimes when Ethan couldn't be there. She'd do it for free if he asked. He tried not to ask. At 8:15, a doctor emerged. Dr. Morrison, according to his badge. 50s, gray beard, tired eyes. She's stable. Severe concussion, possible skull fracture. We've stopped the bleeding and started IV fluids. She's unconscious but responsive to pain stimuli. That's a good sign. Will she be okay? If she wakes up in the next 24 hours without complications, probably. We'll need to transfer her to Del Seaton Medical Center in Austin for imaging and observation. The ambulance is on its way. Did she say anything? No. Still unconscious. Do you know anything about her? Name, age, medical history? Ethan shook his head. He pulled out the phone he'd found. She had this. Dr. Morrison took it, examined the cracked screen. We'll try to contact whoever's been calling. In the meantime, we need to settle the immediate treatment costs. Our services tonight come to $437. We can bill you. I'll pay now. The words came out before Ethan could stop them. Dr. Morrison looked surprised. You don't have to. How much can I pay now to cover the most critical items? Janet pulled up a screen. We can separate out the trauma assessment and stabilization. That would be $147. Ethan pulled out his wallet. 3 20s, 1 5, 2 1s. He held them out. Janet counted it. This is $47. That's what I have. She looked at Dr. Morrison. He looked at Ethan. We'll apply this to the account, Dr. Morrison said quietly. We'll bill the rest to county assistants if she remains unidentified. Ethan signed papers he barely read. Payment agreement. Consent for emergency treatment as responsible party. Liability waiver. When he left at 9:30, his wallet was empty. He drove home under stars that looked like broken glass. The call came at 6 the next morning. Mr. Cole? This is Del Seaton Medical Center. The patient you brought in yesterday has regained consciousness. She's asking for you. Ethan had slept 3 hours. Mia was still asleep. He left a note on the kitchen table. Emergency. Back by lunch. Cereal in pantry. I love you. He made the drive to Austin in 42 minutes. The hospital was nothing like Hillcrest. Glass and steel, 5 stories, valet parking. Ethan found a spot in the visitor lot and took the elevator to the 4th floor. The girl sat propped up in bed, bandages wrapped around her head, IV in her left arm. Her eyes were open, green and clear. She looked at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You're the one who found me, she said. They said you saved my life. Ethan shrugged. I just drove fast. What's your name? Ethan Cole. Thank you, Ethan Cole. She paused. I don't know what my name is. The neurologist, Dr. Patel, explained it in the hallway. Retrograde amnesia, likely temporary, caused by the trauma. She remembered basic things, how to speak, read, use a fork, but nothing personal. No name, no family, no memory of how she ended up on that road. The phone we found had 17 missed calls from someone named V. Sterling, Dr. Patel said. We tried calling back. It goes to voicemail. Corporate voicemail. Sterling Industries. Ethan felt something cold move through his chest. Sterling Industries. He'd heard that name. One of the largest private equity firms in Texas. Maybe the country. She might be connected to them, Dr. Patel continued. But until we can confirm her identity or she remembers, we're in a holding pattern. Do you know anything that might help? The police are involved now. They're treating it as a suspicious incident. Someone will want to talk to you." Ethan nodded. Back in the room, the girl looked at him with those green eyes. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Why did you stop?" Most people wouldn't have. Ethan thought about it. "I saw you in my mirror. Once I saw you, I couldn't unsee you." She smiled, small and sad. "I don't even know what I look like. Do you want a mirror?" "Not yet." The social worker arrived at noon with bad news. The girl had no insurance information on file. The hospital needed somewhere to discharge her for observation, but without identification or family, their options were limited. County shelter or a holding facility until the police investigation concluded. "She can stay with me," Ethan said. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. "Mr. Cole, that's very generous," the social worker said, "but there are liability issues. I'm a former paramedic with trauma training. I have a spare room." "It's better than a shelter." Dr. Patel pulled him aside. "You understand this is highly irregular. We'd need you to sign additional paperwork accepting responsibility." "I understand." 20 minutes later, he was signing more forms. The social worker gave him a list of warning signs to watch for. The hospital gave him prescriptions he couldn't afford to fill. The girl she'd chosen, the temporary name Lena because she liked how it sounded, walked out of the hospital in borrowed scrubs and paper slippers. She moved slowly, one hand on Ethan's arm for balance. In the truck, she stared out the window as Austin gave way to hill country, then to the flat, dry expanse that surrounded Red Hollow. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," Ethan said. Then he corrected himself. "My home." For now, Mia accepted Lena's presence with the easy adaptability of 7-year-olds. She gave up her bedroom without being asked and helped Ethan set up the fold-out couch in the living room for herself. Within an hour, she'd shown Lena her rock collection, her favorite books, and the raccoon family that lived under the back porch. "Daddy says we can't feed them because then they won't hunt," Mia explained seriously. "But sometimes I leave peanuts by the fence. That's not the same as feeding." Lena smiled. It was the first real smile Ethan had seen. That night, he made spaghetti with sauce from a jar. They ate at the small kitchen table under the yellow overhead light. Mia talked about school, about her teacher, Mrs. Phillips, who had a glass eye, about the boy named Connor who ate paste. "Connor says paste tastes like vanilla, but I think he's lying," Mia announced. "Don't eat paste to find out," Ethan said. "I won't. I'm not dumb like Connor." After dinner, Ethan washed dishes while Mia showed Lena how to play Go Fish. Through the window above the sink, he could see his truck in the driveway, and beyond it, the empty road. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance, moving slowly. Ethan watched as a black sedan crept past his house. Tinted windows, out-of-state plates. It continued down the road, then turned around at the dead end and came back even slower. This time it stopped across the street. Ethan dried his hands and walked to the front door. He stepped onto the porch. The sedan's engine idled for 10 seconds, then it pulled away, tires crunching on gravel. Back inside, Lena looked up from her cards. "Everything okay?" "Yeah. Just checking something." But he pulled the curtains closed. That night, after Mia fell asleep on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, Ethan sat in the dark kitchen with his old hunting rifle across his lap. He hadn't fired it in 3 years. He checked the chamber anyway. At 2 in the morning, the sedan drove past again, headlights off. Ethan didn't sleep. The memories came back in fragments over 3 days. A voice screaming her name, hands grabbing her, the smell of leather and cologne, a room with no windows. On the 4th night, Lena woke up, screaming. Ethan reached her room in seconds. She sat up in bed, gasping, both hands pressed to her temples. "I remember," she said. "Oh God, I remember everything." Her name was Eleanor Sterling, 26 years old. Only child of Victor Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Industries. Net worth, $8 billion. 2 weeks ago, she'd been taken from the parking garage beneath her apartment in downtown Austin. 3 men. Professionals. They'd held her in a warehouse for 6 days, filming proof-of-life videos, demanding $20 million in cryptocurrency. Her father's security team had tracked the location, moved in. Something went wrong. Gunfire. Chaos. In the confusion, one of the kidnappers had dragged her into a van, driven north, beaten her unconscious, and dumped her on County Road 14. "They were going to kill me," Eleanor said, her voice hollow. "The ransom drop failed, so I became a liability. They were supposed to make it look like I died trying to escape." Ethan felt the world tilt slightly. "Your father, does he know you're alive?" "I don't know. Maybe they told him I was dead. Maybe he's still looking." She looked at Ethan. "Those men who drove past, they're looking for me, to finish the job." Mia appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Is Lena okay?" "She's fine, honey. Go back to sleep. Can I sleep in here with her?" Eleanor held out her hand. "Come here." Mia climbed into bed and curled against Eleanor's side. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Eleanor looked at Ethan over Mia's small body. "You need to call the police," he said. "Why not?" "Because someone in my father's organization helped plan this. That's the only way they knew where I'd be, when I'd be alone. If I call the police, whoever it is will know I'm alive. They'll send someone better, someone who won't leave evidence. Then we call your father directly." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Okay, but not from here. If they're monitoring his communications, they'll trace the location." Ethan thought about the sedan with tinted windows, the slow passes, the watching. "We need to move," he said. Now. They didn't move fast enough. At 7 the next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of engines. He looked out the window and felt his stomach drop. 5 black SUVs in a line, blocking both ends of his street. Men in dark suits emerging, forming a perimeter. This wasn't an attack, this was an extraction. The lead SUV's rear door opened, and a man stepped out. Even from a distance, even having never seen a photo, Ethan knew who it was. Victor Sterling moved like gravity bent around him. 60 years old, gray hair, suit that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. Behind him, a woman in tactical gear carrying a submachine gun. Eleanor appeared at Ethan's shoulder. She saw her father and made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "He found me." 2 minutes later, Victor Sterling stood in Ethan's living room, looking around with the expression of a man touring a landfill. His security team had swept the house, checked every room, established a secure perimeter. Now it was just the 5 of them. Victor, Eleanor, Ethan, Mia, and the tactical woman who introduced herself as Miss Chen, no relation to their neighbor, Eleanor. Victor's voice was controlled, but Ethan heard the crack beneath it. "We thought you were dead." Eleanor moved to him. They embraced, stiff and awkward, like people who'd forgotten how. "I'm sorry, Father. I couldn't risk contact until I knew it was safe." "It's not safe. It won't be safe until we identify everyone involved." Victor looked at Ethan. "You're the mechanic who found her." "Yes, sir. My daughter's security team traced her movements using satellite imaging and cell tower triangulation. The last ping from the kidnapper's vehicle was approximately where you found her. You should have called the police immediately. I took her to a hospital, a clinic. You signed your name to her intake paperwork, which created a digital footprint that took my people 4 days to find. 4 days my daughter was exposed." Ethan felt heat rise in his chest. "I saved her life. You made yourself legally and financially responsible for her treatment, which complicates matters significantly." Miss Chen leaned in and whispered something to Victor. He nodded and pulled a checkbook from his inside jacket pocket. He wrote quickly, tore the check free, and held it out to Ethan. Ethan looked at it. The number had so many zeros it took him a moment to process. $2 million. "This is for your discretion, your time, and reimbursement of any expenses incurred," Victor said. You'll also need to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a release of liability. My attorneys will have the paperwork ready within the hour." Ethan took the check. He looked at it for a long time. Mia tugged his shirt. "Daddy, is that a lot?" "Yeah, baby. It's a lot." He handed the check back to Victor. "I don't want it." The room went very quiet. "Excuse me?" Victor said. "I didn't help your daughter for money. I helped her because she was dying on the side of a road." Victor stared at him. "Everyone wants something, Mr. Cole. I want you to keep her safe. That's all." Eleanor stepped between them. "Father, Ethan and his daughter gave me shelter when I had nothing. They kept me safe. He spent his last $47 on my medical treatment." Victor's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. He looked at Ethan differently, then at Mia, who was watching the adults with wide eyes. "I see," Victor said quietly. He put the check away. "Then I owe you a debt that can't be paid with money. You don't owe me anything." Nevertheless, Victor turned to Miss Chen. "Make arrangements. I want round-the-clock security on Mr. Cole and his daughter until this situation is resolved. Nothing visible. I don't want them feeling like prisoners." "Father, the people who did this," Eleanor began, "are being handled. We've identified 2 of the 3 kidnappers. 1 is in custody. 1 is dead. The 3rd disappeared. But we'll find him." Victor's voice went cold. "And we'll find whoever inside my organization betrayed you." He turned back to Ethan. "You'll be contacted by my legal team regarding the hospital bills and any other expenses. Those will be settled. You'll also be provided with a secure phone line in case you need anything. Anything at all. I don't need Mr. Cole." Victor Sterling looked at him with eyes that had built an empire. "My daughter is alive because you didn't drive past her. That debt exists whether you acknowledge it or not. Please allow me the dignity of repaying it in whatever small ways I can." Ethan nodded slowly. 10 minutes later, the SUVs were gone, taking Eleanor with them. The street looked exactly like it had before they'd arrived, except for the tire tracks in the dirt and the business card Victor had left on Ethan's kitchen table. Mia sat on the couch, hugging her rabbit. "Is Lena coming back?" she asked. "I don't know, honey. I hope she does. I liked her." "Me too." That night, Ethan noticed things. The car parked 2 houses down, with someone sitting in the driver's seat. The telephone repair van that had been across the street for 6 hours without anyone getting out. The way certain shadows moved when they shouldn't. Victor Sterling's invisible security. Ethan went to bed that night thinking about the check he'd refused, about the look in Victor Sterling's eyes when he'd realized Ethan meant it. He thought about Eleanor, back in her world of wealth and power. He thought about his daughter, sleeping on a fold-out couch because she'd given her room to a stranger. And he thought, just for a moment, that maybe he'd done something right. The first news story appeared 3 days later. Local mechanic stages rescue of billionaire's daughter. Hero or opportunist? The article painted Ethan as a man who'd orchestrated the entire situation. Anonymous sources suggested he'd been in contact with the kidnappers, had known who Eleanor was all along, had rescued her as part of an elaborate scheme to get close to the Sterling family and extort money. By day 2, reporters were camped outside his shop. By day 3, they were following Mia to school. Mrs. Phillips, the teacher with the glass eye, called Ethan during lunch. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but some of the other parents have complained. They're concerned about the media attention and the allegations. The principal is asking if you could perhaps keep Mia home until this settles down. She's being punished for something I didn't do? I don't make these decisions. I'm sorry." Ethan pulled Mia out of school that afternoon. She cried in the truck. Connor said, "You're a bad man." He said his mom said so. Connor's mom is wrong. But why would she say it? Because people believe what they want to believe, baby. Especially when it's in the news. The shop was vandalized that night. Spray paint across the bay door. Liar. Fraud. Thief. Ethan cleaned it off at dawn, hands shaking with rage. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cole. This is Patricia Walsh from Channel 8 News. We'd like to give you an opportunity to tell your side of the story. I don't have a side. I found someone who needed help, and I helped them. Our sources indicate you signed documents making yourself financially responsible for Eleanor Sterling's care. Some interpret that as an attempt to establish legal grounds for compensation. Ethan hung up. The next call came an hour later. Victor Sterling. I've seen the coverage. So have I. I'm issuing a statement today. Complete exoneration. Public acknowledgement of what you did and how you did it. Will that stop them? Eventually. The media has a short attention span. But Mr. Cole, I need you to understand something. The person feeding these stories to the press is the same person who helped plan my daughter's kidnapping. They're using you to distract from their own involvement. By defending yourself, you keep the story alive, which serves their purpose. So what do I do? Nothing. Let me handle this. In the meantime, my offer stands. $2 million. Take it. Move somewhere quiet. Give your daughter a different life. I don't run. Victor was quiet for a moment. No, I can see that you don't. The gala was Victor Sterling's idea. 3 weeks after Eleanor had been found, Sterling Industries was hosting its annual charity auction, a black tie event at the Four Seasons in downtown Austin. 500 of the wealthiest people in Texas all gathered to bid on luxury items and pretend they cared about the causes their money supported. This year, Victor had added a special segment. Ethan stood backstage in a rented tuxedo that didn't fit right, sweating under the lights. Beside him, Eleanor wore a silver dress that probably cost more than his annual income. "You don't have to do this," she said. "Your father thinks it will help. My father thinks money and publicity solve everything. They don't. What do you think solves things? Time. Truth. People forgetting you exist." A production assistant waved at them. 2 minutes. Ethan's hands shook. He'd never been in front of a crowd like this. Never worn a tuxedo. Never stood under stage lights while a room full of millionaires waited to hear him speak. "Hey." Eleanor touched his arm. "You saved my life when you had every reason not to. You gave me shelter when you could barely afford to shelter yourself. You refused money because taking it felt wrong. Those aren't the actions of a con man. They're the actions of a good person. The news says differently. The news is wrong. And after tonight, everyone will know it." They walked on stage together. The room fell silent. Victor Sterling stood at the podium, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Before we begin the auction, I want to introduce you to 2 people who mean a great deal to me." He gestured to Eleanor and Ethan. 3 weeks ago, my daughter was taken from me. For 6 days, I didn't know if I would ever see her again. And when she was found, left for dead on a remote road in the middle of nowhere, it wasn't my security team or the police who saved her. It was a single father with $47 in his wallet and the courage to stop when everyone else would have kept driving. The room listened. The media has portrayed Ethan Cole as an opportunist, a schemer, someone who saw my daughter's misfortune as a chance for profit. I'm here tonight to tell you the truth. Mr. Cole was offered $2 million for his actions. He refused it. He was offered legal protection, financial security, and a new life for himself and his daughter. He refused all of it. When I asked him why, do you know what he said? Victor paused. He said, "I didn't help your daughter for money. I helped her because she was dying on the side of a road." Someone in the audience started clapping. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet. Ethan stood frozen, overwhelmed, while 500 strangers applauded him. Eleanor leaned close and whispered, "See? Truth wins." The next morning, the headlines changed. Sterling vindicates local hero. Billionaire. Mechanic saved my daughter, asked for nothing. The man who refused $2 million. Connor's mother called Ethan that afternoon to apologize. Mrs. Phillips called to say Mia could return to school. 3 different publishing houses called offering book deals. Ethan declined them all. 6 months later, Ethan stood in the parking lot of the Red Hollow Community Medical Center, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on the building. It was a small facility, just 12 exam rooms, a minor procedures bay, and a pharmacy. But it was free. Completely free. Anyone in the county could walk in and receive treatment regardless of their ability to pay. The sign above the door read, Rachel Cole Memorial Clinic. Victor Sterling had funded the entire project. $2 million that Ethan had refused as payment had instead been used to build something permanent. Something that would help people long after Ethan was gone. Your wife would be proud, Eleanor said. She'd driven out from Austin that morning to see the ribbon cutting. She visited once a month now, sometimes with her father, sometimes alone. Mia always made her show the raccoon family her latest offerings, currently a mix of peanuts and dried cat food. She would have done the same thing I did, Ethan said. She always stopped. Not everyone does. I know. They walked inside. The lobby smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. In the back office, Ethan's medical license hung on the wall, fully restored after Victor's legal team had filed the necessary appeals and presented evidence that the original revocation had been procedurally flawed. Dr. Morrison from Hillcrest had agreed to serve as the clinic's director. His first hire was Ethan, who would work 3 days a week as a physician's assistant while still running his auto shop on the other days. It's not much, Ethan said, looking around. It's everything, Eleanor replied. Do you know how many people will be helped here? How many lives you'll save? Will save. Your father made this possible. No, you made this possible by being the kind of person who stops for strangers. That evening, Ethan sat on his back porch with Mia, watching the sun set over the flat Texas landscape. The air smelled like dust and mesquite and the promise of rain that never quite came. Daddy? Mia said. Yeah, baby? When I grow up, I want to be like you. Ethan looked at his daughter, 7 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, raccoon fur on her shirt from where she'd tried to pet one of the babies. Why's that? Because you help people even when it's hard. Ethan pulled her close. That's just called being a person, Mia, doing what's right even when it costs something. But you didn't have to stop that day. You could have kept driving. Yeah, but you didn't. No. I didn't. Mia was quiet for a moment, watching the sky turn orange and purple. Me too, baby. Later that night, after Mia had gone to bed, Ethan sat alone in his kitchen with a cup of coffee and the business card Victor Sterling had left on his table 6 months ago. The number on it was direct. No assistants, no gatekeepers. He thought about calling, about thanking the man who'd given him his life back. But he didn't, because Victor Sterling hadn't given him anything. Ethan had always had it. He'd just been too buried under debt and shame and the weight of old mistakes to see it. All Victor had done was clear away the rubble. Ethan threw the card away. Outside, a car drove slowly past his house. Not a black sedan this time. Just Mrs. Chen checking on her way home from bridge club. She waved. He waved back. The invisible security had been lifted 3 months ago, after the 3rd kidnapper had been found in Mexico and extradited. After the internal investigation had identified the Sterling Industries CFO as the one who'd orchestrated everything, trying to tank the company's stock price while shorting it for massive profit. After all the danger had passed and Eleanor was safe again, Ethan's life had returned to normal. The shop still barely broke even. Bills still came. Mia still needed school supplies and her lunch account paid. But 3 days a week, he put on scrubs and worked at the clinic, seeing patients who couldn't afford to be seen anywhere else. People like he'd been. People like he still was, in most ways. And every time someone thanked him, every time a parent's eyes filled with relief because their child's fever had broken and they didn't have to choose between medicine and rent, Ethan thought about that moment on County Road 14. That split second when he'd seen something in his rearview mirror and made the choice to turn around. One choice. One moment. Everything that came after the danger, the publicity, the vindication, the clinic, all of it traced back to that single decision to stop for a stranger who was dying in the dirt. Ethan stood and walked to Mia's room. She was asleep, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, breathing soft and even. He thought about what she'd said. "When I grow up, I want to be like you, not rich like Victor Sterling. Not successful or powerful or newsworthy, just someone who stops." Ethan kissed her forehead and turned out the light. Outside, the stars were coming out, and somewhere in the darkness, the world kept turning, full of people who needed help and people who would give it. Ethan Cole was both, and that, he thought as he closed his daughter's door, was enough.